Yeah.
I think it looks fine.
It looks absolutely fine. Like I said,
Thank you.
you've worn it on a past podcast. Hey,
Yeah,
everybody.
I see you recording over there.
Yeah, welcome to Over 50, starting over.
Yeah,
I'm Barry Edwards in the
and I'm Merle Garrison. Oh,
fashion challenge guy. He's worried about his shirt.
no, Barry likes my shirt.
I do like your shirt.
Yes,
Now, this is important. This is going to come full circle because at the end of the show, we're going to talk about fashion.
we
You
are.
and I, yeah, fashion experts and trendsetters.
Right.
We
Right.
are.
Okay. All right. All
That's
right.
how we're going to close out
That's
the
gonna be
show.
interesting.
It
Okay.
sure
All
is.
right.
I got a funny story that goes along with it too.
All right. Cool.
Oh, hey, so where was I? Where was I? I wasn't anywhere. Oh, things that I open up with. I asked you via text if you wanted to talk a bit about obtaining sales. How did I put it? What's the word? Prospecting is one word, but the term that I use generally in my online marketing world is inbound versus outbound marketing. And let me just explain that for a quick minute.
Okay. All right.
All right. So I specialize in inbound marketing, which came to prevalence with the with the evolution of the internet. So that
Right.
means once you put your website online and you optimize your content, now you start feeding blogs out there for all your keywords and you start getting found via Google. The people are seeking you out now because you're the expert pumping out this great information. That's inbound
Right.
marketing. They're coming to you, you're not coming to them. So outbound marketing is your more traditional marketing. You can think of it as billboards, radio ads, TV ads, but it is also common sales, beating on doors, making phone calls. It's going to them and trying to get them. So it's outwardly focused
Mm-hmm.
rather than
Mm-hmm.
bringing inwardly.
Right.
And so me with my introverted personality, I glean all into the inbound marketing all day long, but I've always tried to push myself into doing outbound marketing as well as every business person should. Everyone, it should be part
Right. Right.
of your process. And boy, oh boy, when I get comfortable, that's the first thing I stop doing is reaching out. Now you should have a super list, a list of people that are friends and clients and mentors that are important to you in your career that you can stay in contact with that inadvertently end up bringing you business one way or another. So that is one way of reaching out. Another
Mhm.
that I have spent most of my career doing is the common traditional networking. And I would always notice that my my common jobs coming in would start suffering as I stopped networking as much. But I have stopped networking as much because the world really changed a lot over the
It has. It really has.
last 5 years, especially. People don't network nearly as much. And then, of course, we got COVID now, but let's not muddy things up with that. Um, so whether you're talking about meeting with a networking group, as I have for many years, where you have non-compete things in there. So if there's
Right.
somebody
Right.
else in marketing, you can't have another person in this form of marketing, and another person in telecommunications. You can't have a compete there, and you try to push leads back and forth. BNI is a great resource for this. That's Business Network International, I think is what it stands for. It's the largest networking group in America. And I've mentioned them before. If I were in the trades or something, I would just sign up for my local BNI group and I'd never have to worry about another lead again. As
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
long as you answer the phone and are halfway personable. That's all it takes in the trade industry, and you'll be successful. Anyways, what I admit that I suck at is just drumming up the business like a skilled business person.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start for new leads? How do you drum up the RFPs? How do and I talked to my friend Susan about this, who is in marketing, but I've wanted to
Right. Right.
present you. You are a lifelong high end skilled salesperson. So I wanted to ask you, if you were to come on board a small enterprise like mine, where would you even start?
That's a really good question, Barry. I mean, when you look at sales, there are many different kinds of sales. And I personally been in really nationwide sales, working with large enterprises, mostly hospitals,
Mhm.
and that I am working in a very niche market. So it's not like I can get with a networking group in the community and share that kind of lead, because that's mostly localized.
Mhm.
Those types of organizations are mostly localized when I'm looking more either regional or nationwide. So I have to take a look at what's really pertinent to me and what really helps me. So it would be hard for me to go to what you do and say, here's exactly what I would do. But
Mhm.
I it feels like you're looking for what would work for your environment
Mhm.
specifically. Is that right?
I'm speaking to our audience that is if they're not consultants, they're interested in doing business
Mm-hmm.
consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I'm wondering is, are there, geez, do people like advertise their RFPs in trade journals anymore and
They
stuff?
do. Well,
Yeah.
it depends. I mean, now in my industry, and I'm in healthcare, so like I said, I'm
Mhm.
with hospitals. I have my company has invested in a database type of application. It's called Definitive Healthcare, and Definitive Healthcare actually has all the hospitals in it, all the data on every hospital, every conceivable executive contact that you could get a hold of, their phone numbers, their email addresses, their LinkedIn profiles, the finances of the hospital. So that's a great resource for me to go to. I
Oh.
rely on that very heavily to get leads. It also bubbles up RFP information, and I
Mm.
can query the database with flags for what I'm looking for in my territory. And so when an RFP meets that criteria, it'll just get emailed over to me. Unfortunately for
Wow.
me, right now, not a lot of RFPs coming my way.
Oh.
And I know you didn't want to mention COVID, but it's sort of the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Things have changed dramatically in healthcare and really every other industry as far as that's concerned. So I think it is important that we consider that, because in marketing during this time, for outreach, we really have to change our strategy.
Now, I said that under the assumption that things would go back relatively to normal soon, but
Hmm.
I guess I've been making that assumption for over a year now, or about a year now. What do you, I mean, should we talk like things are going to be different from here on out? As again, I
I
made
think
the
they are going to be different. I think they
oh,
are.
okay. What you
Yeah,
said made me
I didn't
think.
interrupt you.
N- No, what you said made me think about in the old days, I would use the Thomas Register at the library, the big
Right, right.
printed book of, I would imagine that would
It's a
be worth,
problem.
well, I think it'd be worth taking a look at the online version for
Yes.
consultants today.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're talking about being able to go in there and flag things to find RFPs, and now you're getting them in your email box. I
Yes.
know I do that a bit with Indeed and Glassdoor, but that
Hmm.
seems to be more for permanent type work rather than contract for the most part. But sometimes I see some contract.
Yeah, I mean, it like I said, this is all going to depend on the industry that you work in. This one works for me. I really like it. But just going back to what you said before, I really think that the way that we go about doing sales is permanently changed. At least from my point of view, here we're looking at uh, information that the airlines are going to be looking to have everyone vaccinated before they get onto a plane. So I think, at least in the short term, we're going to see a lot of this virtual selling still as I think we've permanently changed the traveling salesperson
Yeah.
and how that's actually going to work, because what we're seeing is that people are starting to adjust to this type of communication, and it's a lot less expensive, it's a lot less
Yeah.
intrusive. I don't believe that once this vaccination is out there, that COVID or COVID-like viruses are ever really going to be a thing we don't talk about anymore. I
Mhm.
think that's permanently changed how we interact. Unfortunately, I think even the handshake might be in jeopardy going
Yeah.
forward. I don't know if that ever comes back. I think in dark circles, maybe people will be shaking hands and hugging, but I don't know that that's going to be a big thing in business going forward. I think a lot of things are going to change here, and we're just going to have to see how they pan out. But like I said, I think you have to adjust in this time to how you're doing your outreach
Mhm.
in every industry.
All right. Well, I think those are really good thoughts, and it's a little bit depressing that a lot of this contact will be lost. But to your point, I know that as soon as some major industries make the permanent shift to more remote sales and bypassing the tens of thousands of dollars it takes to have people transit on a
Yeah,
plane
yeah,
and
it's
stuff like that.
expensive.
Yeah, it's gonna fall like dominoes because the competitors will have to fall in line and cut costs as well. So that is gonna be the
Yeah,
way that
I
goes
don't
for sure.
and I don't think that's all going away. I just think there's going to be a hybrid that we're going to be looking at as we go forward. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I also think that maybe there's just going to be a cut down in flying because not everybody's going to get the
Yeah.
the vaccination, and we're just going to have to see. We're just going to have to see.
You
But
know,
it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. Go
I'm
ahead.
getting Lisa and I are jumping on a plane in 2 weeks to go to
Hmm.
Florida,
Hmm.
and my impression is that there hasn't been any proven contagious elements to COVID via flight. That they've been doing a bang up job of staying sanitized.
It seems like they have. I mean, I have not really heard anything that would say otherwise. Everyone always talks about how these airplanes are highly ventilated and everything, and maybe they are. But I got to tell you, every time I fly, whatever the guy is eating 2 rows ahead of me, I can
Yeah.
smell like it's like right in my face. So it's
Yeah.
hard for me to believe that the airplane is the safest way if COVID is that. I don't know, either COVID's not as contagious as it is. I guess this doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make sense when you think
No.
about the airplane thing.
All right, back to the business
Yeah,
development. I did want
yeah,
to
yeah.
just briefly share what Susan, my friend in marketing of many, many years, who I've partnered with for a long time on many things, some of my most
Right.
fun projects. Well, she's really good at business development. And we talked last night about this. I brought it up because she's like, so I was at this meeting where there's a request for proposal and this local company is in there. They got the job, and this local company is a direct competitor of mine. And I'm like, man, how do I not know about these things? How do you find these leads? And she starts laughing. She goes, it seems like we have this conversation every year right about this time. And I laughed. I said, it does seem like I've asked you this a lot. And it's because she goes, look, this is what I always tell you. I treat every situation like a potential sale. I always have business cards on me. If I go to the movies, I am looking to possibly do an event there that is going to
Hmm. Hmm.
cross promote people and things like that. I get on board of directors of wherever I can. That gets me referred to other places. She says, I do speaking engagements absolutely everywhere I can for free on marketing, and it opens up a lot of doors. And I know I've done speaking engagements with her. I've done it on my own. That's probably been my number one uh, place to convert to make sales. That's kind of an inbound marketing technique, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and kind of fun too. I mean, that's sort of your thing.
I'm good at it when I do it, but then, especially like when I'm done, I'm like, wow, that went really well. I'm really proud. That was great.
Right.
But when it's like seeking those things out and lining them up and the anticipation and preparation to get there, I hate all of it. It's anxiety to me. It tweaks the introvert in me. And so I
Right.
don't need to do it. I find myself talking myself right out of it, somehow or another.
I think a lot of people struggle with this introvert extrovert thing in sales. I mean, you know,
Oh, it's an extroverted world all the way.
sales is hard. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just hard. It's funny. I was in a training class one time, and somebody said this to me. Um, he said, you know, you guys are outside salespeople. And that's what I am. I'm not an inside salesperson. I'm an outside salesperson. I go to them. And he says, you know, outside sales people are highly functional introverts.
The
And
hell does that mean?
okay, here's something interesting. Now I'm going to say this. I have a friend of mine who seems very outgoing, and one day he told me he was an introvert. I could apply this to you too, because
Mm-hmm.
the fact is you seem very outgoing all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
what I found out was that's not what an introvert is. Outgoing, you know, that has nothing to do with an introvert. It's where you get your rest. Are you at rest when you're out with a bunch of people,
God, no.
or are you at rest when you're at home and you're in your own environment and everything like that? That's
That's
the
interesting.
determination. And so I was like, well, wait a second. I mean, I like to get out in front of people, and you know, groups of people. That's fun for me, but it sucks all the energy out of me.
That's
And
interesting. I wouldn't have thought that.
where do you go to get recharged? I'm at home. That's where I get recharged. So it turns out that if you're an outside salesperson like myself, I'm traveling usually around the country. I'm by myself 90% of the time. I just have that 10% when I'm with my team or I'm in front of the customer, but that whole time it's a journey by yourself. It's kind of lonely, unless you're cool with that kind of thing, which I am. And I started to understand this highly functional introvert. um, I know how to make that all happen when I'm on the road. I'm self motivated. Nobody needs to push me. I function well in that. I'm able to get into my hotel room and come up with my plan on the fly if I have to, adjust my plan, get those PowerPoints together, blah blah blah. That's an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah, you blew my mind here because I
I
never
was
thought
blown away
about it.
too.
I never
What
thought
do,
about it like this, but you're exactly right. I see both sides of the fence there because
yeah,
when we talk about outside sales, I'll guarantee you 99% of us think, oh, extrovert all the way, people person, got to be on all the time.
right,
And,
right.
and that kind of thing. But you just explained as 90. It's like a lawyer. You think lawyer and you think, oh, they're out there doing a trial all the time. They love that stuff. No, it's 90% studying prep and preparation.
Right.
And it's
Yes.
kind of like what you're saying right there.
And if you are an extrovert and you got 90% of your time you're focusing on things, you're by yourself, you're in a hotel room all by yourself, boy, that might drive you insane.
Yeah.
So
We know
so
people like that. You know
and
people
of
that can't
course.
stand sitting behind a desk. They want to be with the people. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be behind the desk all the time. I got to be moving around, but a lot of it is it's a journey. It's
Balance.
almost like I sometimes when I leave home to go on these trips, it's almost like, you know, get on your horse and you're going to be gone for several days. You're going to camp out in the woods. You know, I mean, there might be a bear out there. I don't know. It's kind of like that, and there's an adventure, and that's kind of exciting to me. You know, it's something I miss quite a bit, which I didn't think. I haven't been on a plane for over a year, and
Really?
yeah, and that's just insane. I mean, I was on a plane sometimes several times a week, but now that's gone. And at first, I was okay with it, but now it's like, boy, can I get used to being in front of my desk all the time? I don't know. I like moving around.
No, I got it. You, I guess you would say, see, I would always describe you totally as an extrovert. Think I
Right.
still would, but you did just describe that it takes a good balance. I guess you just got a really good balance, you
Yeah,
know?
it depends on what your definition of extrovert introvert is. If I take the traditional, I would say that I'm extroverted. But then when I look at that other definition, which I think is the clinical definition, I think I'm an introvert.
You mean where you recharge your batteries?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I think that's a
exactly.
great one. I never heard it put that way before. That's a great one.
Right, right. And then, I have to have that. And the weekends are so important for me to recharge my battery. And if the phone rings, I don't even want to answer it.
Yeah,
So I think that's what I am. I think I'm a highly functional introvert,
that's really interesting. That's
isn't
really
it?
so to put a cap on the
I,
business
I think you
development.
might be the same, by the way.
Oh, I'm definitely an introvert that has learned social skills.
And look
Definitely.
at you. You're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
You get out. You do public speaking and everything like that. So it almost feels like the best person for the type of sale that you're talking about doing for outreach is a personality like yours. I guess that's the
Yeah.
point that I'm trying to make, is that it seems like the most effective people have the exact same thing on the inside of them that you do.
Hmm.
And it's guys like me. We don't want a cold call. We don't want to call out. No, we
Who
don't want to
wants
do
to?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we also know that it's sort of like blocking and tackling. If you don't do it, you're not going to be able to perform well. And
Yeah.
if you don't practice it, you're not going to be able to perform well. And so you just got to do it. And highly functional introverts do that.
Yeah. Boy, I think that you really opened up some doors here for conversation and future conversations. Business development is, boy, that's not something you read your Bible on and then you got it. You're done. There's,
That's for
and
sure.
as you just said, you think it's changed from here on out. And
It may have.
now, what you got me on the fence with here is I was kind of coming into this conversation thinking this morning as I'm working out. I just got done talking to Susan and, thinking about, what I need to reincorporate. And I came up with, well, damn, I got to get back on doing speaking engagements again. I totally just forgot. Well, here's the wrench you just threw into that for me is first of all, I can't right now, still COVID, and you're saying that it's going to be changed for a long, it might be a long slow road back to getting in front of people as a speaker.
Well. Hey, here's the good news on that, is that right now the medium that you're using, that
Yeah,
you're very
webinars.
proficient at,
Yeah.
companies have changed. So now we're on the bleeding edge of a new frontier
Hmm.
where everybody's got to figure out. They know there's a value to these types of things that we were doing, but now we have to refashion and retool and do it a different way. So what I'm seeing is like these trade shows where that we normally have in my industry, they're virtual now, and we
Yeah.
have the speakers, and we're doing everything we were doing when we were on site. We're just doing it virtually. Is it as effective? We're going to have to find out. But what I'm seeing here, Barry, is some pretty creative stuff. I mean, I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised at how the human ingenuity rises to the occasion for things like this. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't close the door on that, Barry. I think
Hmm.
it might even be easier for you to do it right now. And I also believe this, in a situation like this, we really have to be open to rethinking this whole situation, as uh, COVID-19 might actually work to our benefit.
Hmm. uh
I'm
I
not
think
saying
that's good
that
advice.
it's comfortable. I'm just saying that if
Yeah.
we change our attitude that way,
Yeah.
I think it'll allow our minds to grasp or see the opportunity. And if
Hmm.
we don't change our attitude, we might not. Remember when we were kids, you'd go to like the doctor and they had that magazine called Highlights, and you'd open it up and it'd be like a picture, but it hidden inside of the picture were all these objects that you had to pick out.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, now if you didn't know those objects were there, you would just see the picture. But
Yeah.
once you knew the objects were there, you'd find all these little things, which was so fun. But I'm just saying, it's like that with COVID. If we change the way we look and say, hey, there's objects out there, little goodies, there's gold out there for us, I think that those opportunities will start to appear to all of us.
That's really interesting. You got me thinking. You got my wheels turning 100 miles an hour. Like for one, it's I got to dust off past presentations that I've done, kind of modernize them as my business has evolved over the last couple of years, and I think that we people like me that are looking for speaking engagements, or the same thing is to do a webinar, same thing. It's you're doing a if you want to do it live or recorded. Your goal should be, if you want to do a webinar, bring people in and you give them everything but your secret sauce. That's what you do. You
Right,
bring
right.
them
We've
into the
talked
top of
about
your
this, right?
funnel, right? And so you get X amount of leads. You're going to get 80% DIYers that are coming, but you want the 20% that are like, man, this is just too much for me to do, but you know what you're talking about, so let's talk. That's what you're
Right,
looking
right.
for. So
Yeah.
that's the same as a speaking engagement. That's the same as a webinar. And what I was going to get at is, ultimately what you want to do is get that so polished that you record an evergreen webinar that you could just throw back out there once a week to some paid advertising or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. You ready to
I,
move along? Or
yeah, I
go
wanted
ahead.
to. I wanted to talk about something that I had a wonderful thing. It was last week. I got to go to a friend of ours' house. Anne Marie and I did. We
You
went over
got
to
out?
Rhonda's house. I'm still gushing about this because I got to go to somebody's house. I mean,
You
this
didn't
is
tell
like,
Governor Newsom, did you get
yeah.
clearance? Did you get
It was a clandestine operation, which made it even more fun.
Yeah.
But we went over. It's so weird, right? Like this is like a thing, but it was great. So Rhonda's a friend of ours, and she's just a sweetheart. And her husband passed away about a year and a half ago, and so we went over there for the purpose of a friend of hers was struggling with health, and he's getting rid of a lot of his stuff, and he's got a book collection that he's having some problems with his eyes. He can't read them anymore. So she took the books and invited us over. She knows I'm a big reader, invited us over and asked me, hey, pick out any book you want. So we went out to the garage. There's all these books out there, and I found some pretty interesting books. It's kind of cool. I wanted to show you because I'm kind of
yeah.
So first, there was a ton of books. I couldn't believe how many there were, and I don't just read anything. So
Right.
I was kind of thinking, is there even going to be anything in there for me? And I dug around, and I got a little discouraged. But suddenly, I started finding what I thought was gold. And the first
do you ever read fiction? Because I'd throw the fiction out right away. I
hardly read fiction, but I found this right away. Can you believe this? It's what happened at Kent State. I mean, I'm out here and it's like what happened and why, and it goes into this, and it's like this could happen in your town and to your kids at your school, and I'm like, that was my school, that was our school, Barry.
Yeah. Boy, they beat that dead horse every year, though.
Oh, they sure did, didn't they? And every year they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you if you've heard of an author named Ray Kurzweil.
No.
Ray Kurzweil. Okay.
Oh, God, you would think I would. Age of Spiritual Machines. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah,
what does that say at the top?
Too.
When
when computers exceed human intelligence, the age of spiritual machines. And it goes into, in fact, I have two books by this guy. I'm sorry about that. Here's the
singularity is near. How old are these books? No, I don't.
This one's 2003.
Oh, wow.
And so he wrote this same author, Ray Kurzweil. And here's a quote on the back of it by Bill Gates. Ray Kurzweil is the best person I know at predicting the future of artificial intelligence. His intriguing new book envisions a future in which information technologies have advanced so far and fast that they will enable humanity to transcend its biological limitations, transforming our lives in ways we can't yet imagine.
Absolutely.
I looked at this and I'm like, Barry's reading these books. I got to get these books and read these so that I'm not left in the dust in these conversations. I'm like, I know where he's getting this. It's this Ray guy. I bet he's his neighbor.
I've not heard of him, but I am sure that he is dead on and way ahead of his time.
And that was in 2003, by the way. And then I got this other one, and it's The God Effect. I think I've heard of this before, but I think another one that you and I would both be interested in. It's the Quantum Entanglement, Science's Strangest Phenomenon, and it talks about time travel, teleportation, and the ultimate computer. Can you believe I ran into a treasure trove of all this stuff?
And
It's
those
like,
3 bulleted points are all things we've talked about like in
know,
the last
right?
month.
I couldn't believe it, Perry. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited in that garage. I'm like, because he was like trying to push these books on me. Like, okay, no, I thought you would want to bring a wheelbarrow out here. I'm like, I don't have enough room in my place for all my books right
Or in
now.
your head. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And but then suddenly, man, I'm like, I want that one and that one and that one and that
That's
one. And
cool.
so anyhow, so I got a bunch of books. And then okay, so it didn't end. We went back into her place. At first, we were all wearing masks. Okay,
Uh-huh.
like just sitting there in the house wearing masks and all. But then Rhonda asked if we wanted to have some wine, and the mask came off.
Oh, sure.
and,
Sure.
and we had some wine, and we told stories about Rodney. Her she's a widowed.
Yeah.
Her
You said
husband.
that.
Oh, and there were great stories that we
Yeah.
told. It just felt good to be able to get out and
Connect.
be in front. I mean, I know we were talking about the whole virtual thing, but man, it's just not good for us to be alone like this. We need to be able to connect, and it's been a year. It's been a year, and it's time. We got to get out there. Anyhow, that was a great time, great experience that I had. And I thought I was thinking of you that night, and I'm like, I can't even believe what are the chances. Barry and I were just talking about this kind of stuff this morning.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what is that author's name again? Because I want to look him up and see if he's got some like newer stuff.
Yeah, it's Ray Kurzweil.
Okay, gotcha.
I know that's kind of shiny right there.
No, I could read it fine. Thank you.
Yeah, and so that was a great thing. And then another thing that I was able to do, I did another episode on World Edition this week on the panel. It was
IBM TV.
Yes, and this time they have this show called World Edition Cyber Wednesday, and Rex Lee comes on, and he basically hosts it, and it was very interesting this time around. We had an author on the show. This guy is high powered. His name is Wayne Lonestein. And he has a book out called Social Media: The Next Battlefield in Information Warfare, Information Warfare. And we're talking about this whole disinformation thing that's out there. And it was really interesting, the conversation that we were talking about in light of politics that are happening today and everything that led up to the election. But it was also interesting that we had a guy from Russia that was on the line, and he kind of missed some of this information we were talking about disinformation, and came onto the show late, and he gave his take on the whole thing. And he was saying that, he believed that Trump was a KGB agent, and also that he's going to be going to jail. The FBI is going to get him, and all of his supporters are white supremacists. And I was saying to him that, I can see why you might say something like that, being from Russia or any other country, because here in the United States, we have a very hard time getting the truth of what's going on, and we're here. But I just want to tell you,
it's getting worse by the day,
that all the Trump supporters didn't vote for Trump because they love Trump and his personality. It's more complicated than that, and there's really a lot more than white supremacists that support those policies, including myself. I'm a black conservative, so he didn't say anything after that. But I thought it was interesting, his take, because here we were talking about disinformation, and people, he said this about the impeachment, that everyone around the world is watching this, and they're watching to see what the United States is going to do with this racist. And I thought, oh boy, this is
look at the filter that they're looking through. Oh my God.
I know. And I almost felt sorry for the world, actually, that it's come to this. And it's like I've thought about this line in the Bible for the last couple of weeks. It says, and I'll paraphrase that: everything a man says seems right until you hear the other guy. You know what I mean?
True.
And so what's happening here is we're trying to shut down the other guy so that the original guy, everything seems right, and we're seeing it, and it's very effective. Unfortunately, it never works out.
No, it doesn't. I don't. I got something kind of related to that. I just listened to the other half of the Tulsi Gabbard interview on Rogan's podcast, and it was
Yeah,
really
that must have been
good.
interesting.
Oh my god! And she's starting her own podcast.
Is she?
Oh yeah, that would be so good. Boy,
Did she get voted out?
she no, she voluntarily stopped when she started her presidential run.
Oh,
She
that's
said
right.
she couldn't do both at the same time.
How could
But
anybody?
she lambastes the Democrats all day long. And she's a Democrat, for God's sakes. But she just constantly talks about how Congress is very much like a high school. It's all cliques and they talk behind your back. If she told this story about going to yoga, they have their own private gym and everything. She says that's great, where everybody can be on common ground, doing the same thing, kind of thing. And she talked about, oh, who was the speaker? I
Nancy
can't.
Pelosi?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's that other dude? Anyways, he
Schumer?
no, not a
Sorry.
yeah, not a name that I readily
Okay,
recognize.
all right.
Um, but he was in the yoga class and she was surprised. And she said, so after yoga, everybody gets ready and people are walking down the hall and she sees him up there and hey, what's your name? Saw you're in yoga. Good for you. Republican guy. And she high fives him. And then she said, and she didn't name names, but she goes, and then the two Democrat ladies came walking right by me, muttering under their breath that they can't believe that I just high fived a Republican.
That is just like high school.
It is just like high school.
That is
She's got a
terrible.
lot of stories like that. Then she talks about, you probably know of this. Congressman Steve Cohen on CNN accused all of the National Guard basically of not being trustworthy because 25,000 of these troops are deployed in Washington, D.C. right now, right?
Yeah.
He says they're possible insider threats because, according to Cohen, only 20% of white males voted for Biden, meaning 80% voted for Trump. I don't know where he got that number, but that's what he said on this CNN interview. He says, and the military is over 90% male, mostly white. Well, let's draw some conclusions here. So he assumes over 75% of the National Guard voted for Trump, therefore cannot be trusted to uphold their oath to support and defend the Constitution and fulfill the mission to defend the nation's capital. He's promoting racism and tribalism right here at the highest degree. Now, Tulsi Gabbard spent 17 years in the National Guard. She's a Democrat. She's highly offended by this and says he shouldn't even be in Congress. So have you not heard about that?
I haven't heard about him specifically, but there have been several people within Congress who have suggested this over the last several weeks. And,
no kidding.
Yes. In
so
fact,
he kind of flamed that fire.
Yeah, many were concerned about the inauguration and that one of the people within the National Guard may have a reason to get revenge and might want to harm the president. And so I just think that kind of talk is what can destroy our democracy when it's coming from these types of leaders. And here we have a president or an ex-president that's being impeached for this same kind of rhetoric. And I think that the double standard is really something. But
always.
I wanted to mention now, because you're bringing up all of this type of thing, and it seems like there's a coordinated effort that's here to destroy any possibility that Trump or the followers in the Republican Party would have a possibility to gain power back within the government. And the Time magazine came out with an article last Friday, as a matter of fact. I sent you a link to that. Did you? It's a long article. I don't know if you had a chance to read that.
I read at least half of it, but you're right. It's a long article, and I forgot to finish it, to be quite honest.
And you know what? I don't think you had to. I think if you read half of it, you got the gist of what's going on there. But I found it to be, well, disturbing, number one, but it just speaks to this, the double standard, the hypocrisy. But I mean, when you start to look at this wasn't our imagination that things were happening in the background. And I think I felt good about that, hey, okay, I'm not crazy, because here's Time Magazine, hardly a conservative,
Right. It's
magazine.
not conservative.
But just a quote from them. There's this author is saying the handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election, an extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free and fair, credible, and uncorrupted. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. Though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines, with crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. It goes on to say, that the work touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. They fended off voter suppression lawsuits, recruited armies of poll workers, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and use data-driven strategies to fight viral smears. They executed national public awareness campaigns that helped Americans understand how the vote count could unfold over days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more traction. After Election Day, they monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the results. Well, that was kind of long. Sorry about that. But
well, I think that we should back up and first of all say what the name of the article is, and
yeah,
I would.
That's pretty good. It's the Time Magazine. Oh boy, what is the name of it? I'm trying to find it here. It's this. I can't find it on top of. The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election. It's in the current issue of Time Magazine.
Now, what I want to say about that, to explain it so we have a foundation to work with, we kind of went into details before we got our foundation there, is the name right there suggests to save the election of 2020. Okay. What it is it's a celebration of the I want to say trickery, but I think they would say more of their grassroots efforts.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, of saving the election for the Democrats. What they did was give a very powerful outline of all the manipulative tactics that were used.
They did. And, when they talk about a shadow campaign and a secret, they actually call it a secret cabal. I've never heard of cabal actually used in a positive way ever. But, the fact is they're saying that they're saving America, but they had to do it in secret. And they did it, and their purpose was, they said it wasn't to change the vote, but at the same time, they're talking about this president that's out of control and that he's autocratic. So what could possibly be the goal? It seems like if you change the names and President Trump would have won, that all hell would break loose with an article like this if that happened on the other side. And also, is a lot of this is what President Trump was being accused of for the last 4 years, saying that they were saying that he wasn't a legitimate president as a result.
Right. No, I
agree. Pretty crazy stuff.
Things get crazier and crazier by the day. I can't even believe it. I go over the political headlines and I am in awe and shock and disgust by I'm telling you, it seems like it squares itself in its ridiculousness on a daily basis.
It really does. It really does. And the impeachment thing too. It's so hard to watch.
I can't follow it at all.
I've seen a total of 5 minutes of it. Yeah. It's just too. I can't listen to any of these. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican. This is just toxic. I think this is bringing the whole country down, and I wish that we could just move on, and I really wish we could just talk to each other
Yeah.
and just understand each other. But as far as impeachment goes, it's looking like our governor here in California is about to have a serious challenge with this recall. Over the last week, it was going to take about 1.5 million signatures to trigger the recall, and this past week we surpassed that 1.5 million signatures. So it's looking like this recall effort is actually going to work. We have until the end of March for this to complete, and they're looking to get another 500,000 signatures to make sure that none of the that they have enough after they do their audit of the signatures, because we know some of them are going to drop out. But it brings up an interesting dynamic here in the country, because other states have the potential of doing that as well. Uh, we're seeing in New York where Mario Cuomo is in big trouble because of the latest announcement, that the bombshell announcement that came out, that his aide, his personal aide, has admitted to manipulating the data regarding the nursing homes and the deaths that happened in the nursing homes, and that just happened last night. And their legislatures talking about impeachment as well now.
I thought I remember seeing about 2 weeks ago that they said that the data for nursing homes in New York was skewed by 50%.
Yes, that's what they said, and now his pretty much his right hand person has admitted it, in saying that the reason they did it was to avoid federal investigation. And yeah, this isn't going to look good. This isn't good, because what was happening is, if you'll recall, during the beginning of the pandemic, the policy was to clear all the ICUs in the hospitals. So they sent 9,000 patients that were in hospitals that had COVID back to the nursing homes, and thousands more ended up dying as a result. And even though they knew this was going on, they didn't change the policy until the end of May.
Mm.
So now there's a lot of explaining they got to do, but it's interesting, because these governors have been governing by executive order, bypassing the legislation where really the representation of the people actually happens, and now it's looking like the chickens are coming home to roost on that.
Yeah. Related. Did you hear about the WHO, as in the World Health Organization, the whitewash? Investigators back Beijing's claim that COVID did not leak from a Wuhan lab. Oh, and the call for
Boy,
no further study is needed into that theory.
yeah, that pretty much confirms our speculation that it did happen at the Wuhan virology lab. And I mean, this is typical China, and we know that the World Health Organization is in their back pocket. And
That's
it's just,
horrible.
but it's also confirming to me on many fronts that a lot of the suspicions that we had, where we're like, that just doesn't look right, it's just panning out that, boy, those suspicions that we have, that we're you get that gut feeling. I
Mm.
always say, go with your gut, because you're probably right. And
Well, the
it's not
simplest
bizarre.
answer is usually the correct one.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
you're
what I
right.
think detectives say that. I don't. Do you have anything else on the current events? I got a couple of lighter things that I think are kind of interesting.
I don't have anything more on current events. I would love to go to the lighter side.
Well, this is intermediate. I think this is just exciting. A Chinese spacecraft enters Mars orbit, joining an Arab ship. And as we talked
What?
about in our after hours, hey, you know what? Just a quick aside. I'm thinking about starting to put our after whatever, our wrap up thing that I've mentioned a couple times.
Yeah, yeah,
We record our wrap up now and throw it on YouTube, but we don't advertise it in any way. I think I'm going to start putting that on the podcast channel. Like
yeah.
maybe break it up. I'll put this up, of course, today on Friday. Maybe on Monday or Tuesday, I'll put up our after hours thing. Break it up.
People have been enjoying it. The ones that I've gotten feedback from. I mean, we're just goofing around and talking, but that's pretty much what we're doing right now.
Yeah, but we do a little more structured now.
Right.
And the after thing, it's just you and I just BSing more of what we really want to talk about.
Right.
A lot of stuff that doesn't make it on this show, we'll talk about in the after. So, anyways, because I talked about this is that the prosperity, US's prosperity rover is going to be landing there, I think, next week. And I mentioned to you that it's 400 million miles. I remember saying that. It's 300 million miles.
Oh, so it's right next door.
Exactly. So anyways, Chinese spacecraft just went into orbit around Mars on Wednesday, and an expedition to land a rover on the surface and scout for signs of ancient life, just like we're doing with prosperity. Authorities announced in a landmark step in the country's most ambitious deep space mission yet, China meaning. The arrival of Tianwen-1 after a journey of 7 months and nearly 300 million miles is part of an unusual burst of activity on Mars. So the Arab spacecraft from the United Arab Emirates, how do you say that?
Emirates.
Yeah. Okay. So that swung into orbit on Tuesday, and the U.S. rover is set for next week. Think about those Martians. You know they're living right below the surface, man. They're putting their periscope up. The periscope, man, it's like it's an invasion. It's an invasion, man. These damn Earthlings.
Those poor Martians, man. I'm telling you.
But I once again was looking at high-res footage. It's the second time I've looked at this on YouTube. Right. It's on there. My God, Merle, to look at it in very high resolution, it's overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time, because if somebody told you that, it's actually the desert in Utah, you totally believe that. It
looks like Western Texas. If I've driven through there, there's nothing out there except for sand and rocks and nothing. And that could be the surface of Mars. Just put a tint on there, some red tint, and it's Mars.
Yeah. But you
wait, hold on.
What
do you think? Is it possible? I know I want to just bring up the conspiracy thing here.
What's that?
That they actually are in Texas, that these things are landing in Texas.
I suppose it is. And we may have a flat Earth, and maybe the whole solar system's flat too. The little discs
could be
that all happen to be facing us all at the same time.
I can just imagine though that they cut. All right, we got to do that again. Roll in the monster.
Take 29. But hey, so everybody's going there looking for proof of ancient life, which I find fascinating because it's irrefutably proven that there was plenty of water on Mars, and you can see riverbeds and all this other stuff. What do you think about that? Like, for one, when I look at the landscape and everything, you're looking up close, like we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's like there's no way that has a chemical in it that we don't know of, a chemical compound or or something.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, it looks just like Earth. And there's a scientist that speculates life actually originated on Mars and later came to Earth, probably via asteroid. Now,
wait, I wanted to answer that. Yeah,
go ahead. Okay,
well,
go ahead.
I always wonder. I think about this a lot, and so first off, I have a very skeptical mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, really, are you really going to Mars because you think life existed? Because that's a pretty convenient thing to spend trillions of dollars. So you think life maybe existed over there, or could this actually be part of like their space force, right? Because that's really what China's really into, and the ability to have the high ground, as we talked about before, having some type of a space base on another planet could actually be advantageous militarily. So I don't know. We also hear Elon Musk talking about colonizing Mars. That's been a recent conversation that's happened, and that they've actually got people selected to be the first people to go there and live there.
Wow.
So why would you want to go there and live there? I mean, maybe, and it's funny because of all the isolation that's happening here, because it's almost like we're living on Mars right now,
I,
because maybe they're getting us used to that so we can just
yeah,
move over to, I don't know what's going on, but
I got two
but my
follow-ups.
my question is this is, okay, so what if water was there? And I think
Mhm.
you mentioned it. I mean, it feels like the universe is made up of common elements, and
Yeah,
so there's probably water all over the universe.
yeah.
But does the presence of water equal life? I don't
We don't know.
I don't know. I don't. It almost, but it feels like in the science community, we found water, and that automatically means life. I know that's not true, but they make it seem like that.
Well, I think that you should couple that with that it's also theorized that there was a much denser atmosphere in the past too. So
Okay.
now you
Yeah.
got more ingredients and the proximity to the sun. You got all the ingredients that I will not be surprised if we find evidence of like some of those bug looking fossils somewhere, microscopic life to
Right. Right.
primordial kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I'd be kind of surprised if we don't find that after extensive searching. I mean, I'd actually really be surprised about that. But oh God, what did I want to ask you? Something really important that you brought. Oh, I wanted to just tell you. I remember it was like yesterday. I read this article, but I didn't make notes on it. But uh, NASA has contracted SpaceX for $300 million to use their rocket, their particular, they call them like big boy rockets or something like
Yeah.
that.
They're reusable.
Yeah, because they're going to be sending the initial stuff to the moon to build a moon station finally. Remember,
Okay.
God, how
Yeah.
many times have I said myself, like, I can't believe that we don't have a moon base already. Well, they are working, they're working on it. There are plans to work on it.
Yeah,
The
and
US.
I
Thank
mean,
God.
outside of curiosity, going to the moon, because I mean, I've seen pictures. It looks like West Texas there too.
Mhm.
There's nothing there. Like, why would I go to
No,
West Texas unless there's
it's a
some
launching point.
other?
It's a launching
Yes,
point.
yeah, and a launching point for what is
To
the
go to Mars, to explore the to space race, to expand our space race. Because we keep saying, man, and I couldn't be more deadly serious about it. Whoever wins that race wins everything.
Yeah,
It,
and that was my point, is that the
yeah.
real reason is for there's a military advantage to be up there. And then
Hmm.
that's why the government is involved in the first place. And sure, we want to know the science of the whole thing, but I think there's a more motivating factor there. And that's what I see, at least. But it is really interesting. I really hope that the Biden administration is very serious about the space program, and especially from a military point of view, because we have competition out there that's very serious about this. We've talked about this a lot, but we can't underestimate that. That is a huge deal.
No, no, I don't think it could be. And you remember what's her name, the press secretary?
Yeah, Jen Psaki.
Yeah,
Yes.
making fun of that.
Space Force. I
That
thought that
that
was
really
funny how she
bothers
said
me.
it. It bothered me too. Actually, she's got. I don't know. I mean, I try to imagine, like, okay, what if she were a Republican, like
Mm.
and she was speaking my, she was on my team. Would I like her? I
Mm.
don't know. The jury's out. I don't think I would. She just doesn't seem to have like a compassionate, like personality that has I don't see the magnetism, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I
And
I
that's just
see
me.
I
I might
just
be
see a
biased.
lack of professionalism as well.
She doesn't seem to know anything.
Yeah.
They are always asking her about really important things. Hey, these people threaten to blow up the world. What does Joe Biden say? Well, I haven't talked to him about that.
Hmm.
But I think if he were here, he would say, that's bad, and I want to stop that. But I'll circle back to you later. That's sort of what I'm getting. It's like, do you ever talk to Joe Biden? Like, anyway, I think that's kind of a big deal.
Okay, let's start wrapping this up.
Hey, I
That
wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
did you watch the Super Bowl last week?
Oh, forgot all about it. It seems so long ago.
I know, right?
I did. It was very disappointing.
Why?
Uh, it wasn't a good game.
It
Um,
wasn't.
oh no, no. I thought it would be. I thought it was a heck of a matchup, but at the same time, I like an underdog. I wanted like Buffalo. Of course, I wanted the Browns to get in there, but when they didn't, I wanted like Buffalo to get in there. Someone new
Right.
to root for, on seat Tom Brady kind of thing. Is
Yeah.
even if the Chiefs beat Tom Brady, the Chiefs with Mahomes in there,
Right. Right.
they still won last year. And so it
Yeah.
would have been
Yeah.
like the passing of the torch or whatever. Okay, whatever. But still, I just wanted to see something new. I wanted a real underdog to root for. And the fact of the matter is, it wasn't even a good game at all because apparently the Chiefs offensive line was really beat up, and the Tampa Bay, all they talk about is Tom Brady. Well, frankly, the unsung heroes of that game was the Tampa Bay defense and defensive
Really? Yeah.
coordinator
Yeah.
that came up with an incredible game plan that just pressured the hell out of Mahomes, knowing that their offensive line was beat up, that they had a bunch of
Nice.
second
Great
string.
strategy.
It was a great strategy. I mean, I'm telling you, that defense was on fire. But because Tom Brady's all the name and rage, he gets all the accolades for it. So not that he doesn't, he's the greatest of all time quarterback. He is.
I mean, he's got to be, right. 7 Super Bowl rings. No one's
Right.
ever. No. We talked about the stats.
Yeah.
It's amazing what he's been able to accomplish. I heard that there was some kind of officiating controversies.
Oh, yeah.
And what I didn't see any of it, but what did you see in that?
They were ticky-tacking on some pass interference stuff. And when you get to the playoff level, and especially the Super Bowl, you don't want to do the you don't want the refs deciding a game for you.
No, that's
you
the
know.
worst.
Yeah, and they kind of got progressively worse against Kansas City. And I don't have a dog in the game, so I'm not biased. I was just like, what? Yeah, so they were rightfully so once again. Though, look at the billions of dollars that is laid out in Vegas on that game. You don't think somebody gets to those refs on occasion? Of course it happens.
Yeah, I mean, we know it happens. We know that happens. If you got money, you can go places.
Can't prove it, but it's suspicious sometimes. That's all I'm going to say about
it. There's famous cases. What was it? The 1917 World Series, and they actually took the title away from the team that won. It was like Boston lost. It was a big deal. And these things happen. They do.
Yeah.
Happen.
Well, we've seen very suspicious Super Bowls in our time and playoff games. Hell, regular season games, but certainly playoffs and Super Bowls. Suspicious calls for sure.
How about the halftime show? Did you see the halftime show?
That's what I was going to bring up. No, intentionally not. They get worse every year. I went outside and smoked a cigar during halftime, and I heard it was awful. And I mean, I've heard consistently that it was awful. So I'm glad I didn't watch it
too.
Yeah.
It's funny because Anne Marie and I were doing stuff that day, and I was totally uninterested in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I knew halftime was coming on, and we were like, hey, maybe we should watch that. Nah, we didn't watch it.
No.
But the next day I saw a picture. It was like halftime show with a question mark, and there was a guy with underwear on his head.
Yeah.
There was a part with people with underwear on their head.
They were wearing bandages, and he explained it that it was against plastic surgery and like Hollywood and stuff like
that. Wow. Well, that's unusual. Interesting.
It's got a better message than last year's. Remember, you and I ripped into that like a couple of old men.
Was that? That's hilarious.
That was the stripper show. Yeah, it was the stripper show with Shakira and J-Lo.
Yeah. Boy. What about the commercials? Did you see any good ones?
No, I don't pay a lot of attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Some people they watch the Super Bowl just for that.
I know. I could not stand to. I've been to my Super Bowl parties, and you got a certain faction that starts talking during the game, and then they shut up and stare at the TV during a commercial and the halftime show. It's irritating.
That's exactly right. It's terrible. I remember that happened at my house. We had a Super Bowl party, and of course, no one was interested in watching the game except for me. And I mean, they sat like right in front of the TV and just they're yelling to each other about whatever. And I'm like,
yeah, I know. I can't do it. Can't do that.
I think the tradition of the Super Bowl that I guess out of the 55 Super Bowls in my mind, probably 50 of them were terrible games anyhow. So it's almost a tradition to, hey, well, we're here to just have a party and watch the commercials.
Yeah,
the game's no good. But we have seen some good ones, especially lately.
The last few years, but this was like a throwback one, like you're saying. We had a 10-year period where they were awful.
No,
There was
no
not a
kidding.
game whatsoever. And
Not
that's
one.
kind of what I stopped watching by the beginning of the fourth quarter. That's how just
Ah,
in the
yeah.
bag it was. All right, so let's wind this up. There was a few things I wanted to ask you, just a thought that I had in my head. And then I turned up an article that spoke to this too. I wanted to ask you if you could describe the fact. Okay, so let me back up. You know how we think of 70s fashion. Oh, bell bottoms and silk shirts and
Yeah,
mustaches
yeah,
and
yeah.
long hair. And then you go to 80s and you got mullets and mustaches and white sports jackets and pastels.
What freaks we were.
And 90s, you got your flannel and grunge. Okay, and it normally takes a 10-year cooling off
Yeah,
period before you can define it, before
it
you see
does.
it
Right.
clearly.
Yeah. Isn't
Well,
that interesting?
well, what the hell were the aughts, the 2000s? And
You,
for that matter, we can even start to formulate what were the 2010s now.
that's good. That's actually really good because I like every other decade I can remember, oh yeah, the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is how it was. And but you're right. Once it seems like okay, here's my theory. It seems like 9/11 changed everything. Once that happened, we're now into this realm where everything is sort of like we're off the charts. We're it's like in Star Trek where they're in space and everything. Then they got that red barrier thing they go into, and nothing
Hmm.
makes sense when they go in there. That seems to be what we're in right now.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty radical. Um, all
I
right.
don't. I don't. Just, everything. All bets are off. Nothing's the same anymore. I mean, we have to admit that it just seems like that once we hit the 2000s, everything changed, and nothing was the same as it was during the last century, or at least
True.
since
But
we were born.
is there an element of us just being older and not into the hip, trendy stage
It's
anymore?
you know what it would be impossible for me to say since I'm in the forest. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
it'd be interesting to be able to know that. I wonder. I
All
wonder.
right.
It's really that's a great question.
I looked it up. There's a few things I want to talk first of all. So I just ran this morning. I ran across this story I thought was really funny. The title of it is Target, as in the store Target. Target
Uh-huh.
decided we need to dress ugly, and a woman has this hilarious photo shoot in Target's new dress. You got to see this first of all, but then she's hilarious with what she did with it. So I'm going to share the screen. And for those of you listening, I am going to try to narrate a bit as well.
I
You
can't wait to
comment
see
as you
this.
want, Merle. But this is the
Oh
yeah, Leslie
boy.
Butterfield from Roanoke, Virginia, decided to do a hilarious photo shoot because of the new dresses. Her son took the photos and helped with her captions. And quote, since Target decided we all need to dress as ugly as homemade sin while we suffer amidst this pandemic, I reckon I would join this movement with the rest of us women's and down home on the range. She wrote on a Facebook post. Look at this photo. Do you see this?
Okay, yeah.
She's got
She's got the expression too from that
exactly.
show.
And if you could tell, she's got a weed hanging out of her mouth. But look at that dress. This is what
Like
Target
she's on
is.
the prairie.
Yeah, exactly. This is what Target is trying to sell to women these days. And she puts an entry in here, her journal entry, day 332 of the pandemic. The Pony Express finally arrived in our town today.
Wait, hold on. Let me just
Yeah.
that really a dress from
Yes.
Target? You're
Yes.
kidding
They're
me.
selling that on the racks right now.
Okay, I
Yes.
get it. It looks like seriously, she's talking
Little
about the
house
Pony
on the prairie.
Express. Yeah,
Little house on the prairie.
I mean, she
Absolutely.
looks like she lives in a log cabin, and there's
Yes.
selling this at
So she's
Target.
out here in the snow in the brush with this photo sitting on a log probably. She says a
Okay,
Pony
that is
Express finally arrived, delivering a much needed letters of encouragement to family and friends alike and alarming news of civil discord. I was so surprised that I nearly burnt burnt the rhubarb cobbler simmering in the Dutch oven. After I churned my own butter, I sold I sold off our fine china made of porcelain. No need for that nonsense anymore. After a 10-month long quarantine, I was able to barter for a new cutlery knife from the local general store since my old one was so dull I couldn't cut hot butter. After daily chores and 5 minutes of homeschooling, the girls made corn husk dolls and boys dipped candles for our lanterns. So
5 minutes of homeschool. There she is down
look at
there.
this.
What is she
So
doing?
Uh, she said the caption is, "We resorted to hunting for our own nuts and berries in the wild brush."
She's foraging.
Yes, yes. Look at this one with the shovel.
I can't
That
believe they're selling this. This is terrible. This
that's
is
the
this is
point.
what
And look at
people
the
have to look forward
expression.
to.
Look at the expression on her face on every one of
I mean,
these.
she's just
That's
like that
stern.
famous. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, that
She's standing
stern
there.
look.
There's mom, pa.
So I'm gonna leave a link for this in the show notes, guys. You got to check this out for yourself. It's hilarious. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can check your podcast notes and check out the link. It's really funny. Well done. We need that kind of stuff during the pandemic. Now, to back to our discussion. So I Googled what was the fashion trend in the 2010s.
Okay,
And
let's see.
the quick definition, can you see it? Do you see it?
It's a very small. I can see it. Yeah, I can see
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Right, 2010 were defined by
Yeah, hipster fashion. I guess that I could see that.
athleisure.
Yeah, I guess that's casual athletic attire.
Uh-huh.
Revival of austerity era period pieces and alternative fashion, swag inspired outfits. You know what this is? This is the ironic hipster age. That's what that is. You could probably throw those lumberjack beards in there too, along with your flannel shirts. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's like those pants they're wearing too, the skinny
Yeah.
pants and everything. And yeah, sort of like they kind of look, everybody looks like they might have a skateboard.
There you go. Very true. So I also Googled what was the fashion trend of the 2000s. In the year 2000, somewhat casual women's and girls' fashion trends were oversized sunglasses, aviator sunglasses, oversized hoop earrings, jeans worn for numerous occasions, such as mid-rise, boot cut, fabric accent down the sides, fabric accents sewn into the flares, laced up sides, and tie-dye, wedge flip-flops, and so on and so on. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, not really. It doesn't
I
shed a lot.
never would have been able to call any of that out.
Yeah, I know. I think that a lot of that is how after they said the thing about the hipster stuff in the 2010s, I was like, oh yeah, okay.
I remember that. I do remember that.
I mean, a guy that likes beer, you go into a new microbrewery and you got your millennial behind there in his tight flannel shirt and his lumberjack beard serving you the beer. Yeah, okay. That's
true.
very ironic. Yes,
Yeah.
you're doing everything very ironically. That's great. Yeah. Until they become a cliche of their own irony. And now it's not ironic anymore.
True. This is true. It is. It's interesting.
Okay. Do you want to end on that note? That's all I got.
That was good.
Stuff. Okay.
That was good. That was good.
One of these days, I want to get to in the lighter side. Talk about our all-time favorite songs, favorite albums, and stuff like that. So I want to put that out to you to think about.
Yeah.
I gave it some thought. I took some notes, but we will get to that in good time.
That sounds like fun. I love it.
All right. You ready to sign off? You got any final words?
Love one another. That's all I got.
There we go. Okay. Can't wait to see you next week. Love you guys. Go to over50startingover.com. Sign up. Get all these notes dropped right into your email box as they happen. See you, Merle. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man.